Hello Internet. I know I did a video a couple weeks ago about Elvis, and I've decided now we're going to try and milk it again. After getting 12,000 views and a mixture of comments, including some people telling me that I'm not a real fan of Elvis, that I'm simply a complete moron. So I want to see how this complete moron's Elvis knowledge works, and this is the Elvis Albums tier list video. So I've decided I'm gonna do this. So it's gonna be me ranking the albums from excellent to bad to just the worst things I've ever heard in my life. Anyways, let's do this from apparently a complete moron who isn't a real fan of Elvis. I mean, okay, gonna flex that a little bit. But anyways, let's start. So the first album, I put this in the 9 to 10 scale. This is Elvis Country. If you don't know this album was a concept album that he did in around 1970, 71. It's a mixture of songs that Elvis grew up on, listening to as a kid, mixed with country songs that he enjoyed singing. So songs like Funny How Time Slips Away, The Fool, which was a song he had done years before in Germany during his army stay, Faded Love. The list goes on, and then also there's another great song on that record, It's Your Baby, You Rock It. Anyways, the reason why I put this in the amazing column, even though it says 9 to 10, I give it about a 9. The only thing I don't like about the album, besides it being so great, is for some reason RCA decided to put I Was Born About 10,000 Years Ago in between the songs, so like little excerpts of that song are sprinkled out through the entire album, and it kind of distracts you from the listening experience, you know, as a fan, I guess. Oh man, I can't wait for the comments. And then the other one I picked was He Touched Me. I put that in the 6 to 7 column. So basically, the reason why I put it in the good column is this album was recorded in 1971 in Nashville, and the story goes is that RCA wanted him to record a Christmas album and then a country album. To satisfy his boredom in the studio, they decided to let him record a gospel album, and the concept of that became the He Touched Me album. Don't get me wrong, there's so many good songs on there. I've got Confidence, the Andre Crouchin tune, Lead Me, Guide Me, Amazing Grace, the list goes on, but then you got some songs that I think are kind of filler, like He's My Everything, which is basically a rewriting of the song There Goes My Everything from the aforementioned country album that we just spoke about. Yeah, so it's not an amazing album. It's not my favorite album he ever did, but it's still a good listen, I guess, from time to time as a fan. Alright, and then we've got Elvis Now. Again, I put it in the good column, and I know, oh, you're just picking on Elvis. Don't get me wrong, if this album was structured a lot better, musically speaking, I would have put it in the great to amazing category. It's structured so poorly in the sense of, like, there's so many random songs. Like, you get a song from 1969, then you get a bunch of the 1971 stuff, then you get 2 or 3 songs that were recorded in 1970, just leftovers from the marathon sessions. But nah, Elvis Now is kind of a filler album. It suffers from that generic 70s cliche of just him in a jumpsuit, which is kind of the unfortunate thing with a lot of these 70s Elvis records that came out, or albums. And then Golden Records Volume 3, I put it in the great column. The reason why I put this in the great column is RCA and Colonel Tom Parker were very smart in how they marketed these gold record albums. They did it really smart in the sense of, like, they always put the best songs. You know, when you listen to an artist's, like, greatest hits, they always put, like, a mixture of songs, so you get the really great songs, the ones that had their rightfully deserved title of being a hit. Then you get some good to decent tracks, and then you get some really awful filler tracks that they put in between to kind of, you know, pad out the greatest hits. So they do the stuff from the beginning all the way to the current stuff. Whereas with Elvis, they did a volume set every couple of years. So Volume 1 came out in 58, Volume 2 came out in 59 while he was in the army, Volume 3 came out in 63, Volume 4 came out in 68, and obviously later on you had the 5th volume, but I don't count that because that was an album that came out years after he unfortunately passed away. But the first 4 albums are phenomenal in the sense of the marketing. You know, a lot of people will, you know, shit on the Colonel and, you know, say a lot of things that, you know, they probably shouldn't say about the Colonel, in a sense. Like, yes, the Colonel, in the beginning, the Colonel was good, like, in retrospect. Like, he got Elvis, like I said in the Elvis in Concert video, he got Elvis on TV, he put him in the army, and he got him in all those movies, which was pretty smart. But then he also screwed Elvis over as well, you know, for example, not letting him work with certain songwriters, the gambling stuff, the list goes on, not letting Elvis tour overseas and all that stuff in general. You know, so that there is things you can criticize the Colonel on, I think, validly. He was very smart in marketing the Gold Record series, him and RCA. They were very smart in marketing that series because they always, with every one of them, especially the first four, with every one of them, they always picked like really good songs that deserve to go on those albums. And then His Hand in Mine I put in the great column, and the reason why I did that is because I actually enjoy listening to the His Hand in Mine record, unironically, and I'm not just saying this, you know, because I'm a moron, but I actually enjoy it. Like, it's Elvis, obviously, in his element, enjoying the music that he really loved and clearly loves on that record. Like, I mean, he does so many great gospel songs on that. Obviously, His Hand in Mine, the title track, is pretty freaking good. Then you got, I'm Gonna Walk Them Golden Stairs, Joshua Fit the Battle, etc. The list goes on and on. I could talk about it all day. Moody Blue, this is a controversial choice. I put it in the OK column. The reason why I put it in the OK column is this album is obviously Elvis's last record that he ever did before he sadly passed away. If you don't know, I'll give a bit of a backstory. In 1976, pretty much, RCA was struggling to get Elvis in a recording studio, and so this idea came up of recording in the Jungle Room, which was a room that Elvis had in Graceland, and obviously later on this would be released in 2016, pretty much pretty much putting together a compilation of the best songs from those sessions. The problem with the album is, in my opinion, with structure, it's not structurally good. You get, obviously, Moody Blue, which is a great sort of country disco track. Then you get the Rockin' Way Down, and then you get the oldies ballad in the sense of Pledging My Love. But then you get some filler tracks that pretty much Elvis's producer recorded while he was on the road during his March to April 1977 tour. Those include Little Darling, the Old Diamonds tune, and then Olivia Newton-John's If You Love Me, Let Me Know. One great live track that came out of that, and I will say it's one of the best tracks Elvis ever did. If you've seen the clip of it, Unchained Melody, it's a beautiful song. Originally done by, I think it was originally done by Roy Hamilton, actually, for a movie back in the 50s called Unchained, and then obviously the Righteous Bros covered it, had a major hit with it, which was later included in the movie Ghost. In 77, around late 76, Elvis started doing Unchained Melody in his live set list, and his producer, Felton Jarvis, decided to record that performance, one of those performances of Unchained Melody, and put it on the Moody Blue album. And that's pretty much what happened. And honestly, it's not the worst album ever made, but it's kind of just a filler album in the sense of, by 77, they were really just running out of shit to put out with Elvis's name on it. They reuse a track on this album, obviously, Let Me Be There from the recorded live on stage in Memphis album back in 74, so they reuse an old track again. One of the Camden albums, Elvis Sings Flaming Star. This one I was a bit undecided on. Originally, I put it in the good category. The reason why I put it in the okay category is, again, like Moody Blue, it's not a bad album, but it's just a random structure of songs, and some of it is kind of the shitty, like, movie songs from around the mid-60s or so. You get a couple of decent ones, like I think Do the Viega comes off that record. You get Tiger Man from the Comeback Special. And then I think you also get Wonderful World, which I actually like that track, Wonderful World. I like both his and the original version by Cliff Richard, of course. But Elvis, I think, does a much better version in my eyes, I guess, of that song, Wonderful World, which I'm not going to sing it because I haven't warmed up my vocals. Plus, it is really late at night over here in Australia, so I'm not going to bother doing that. And in this album from Elvis in Memphis, obviously I put it in the amazing category. What can I say about this album? Honestly, it is one of my all-time favorite albums. Not only from Elvis, but in general. It's easily in my top 10 all-time favorite albums. From start to finish, just a brilliant album I can listen to all the way through. All the tracks, and I'm not just saying this because I'm an Elvis fan and people will say I'm a dick rider, but there's so many great tracks on this album. The only song I don't like on this album, and I get a lot of crap for saying it, is probably his version of Gentle on My Mind. I don't know. I much prefer the version Glenn Campbell did. I think that's one of the few times where the original artist did a much better version than Elvis in my eyes. So that's going to give me a lot of crap in the comments. The last song on the album that closes it off is obviously the big hit, In the Ghetto. A song that, was written at a time of, really bad racial tension in America. And it was pretty much a protest. It was pretty much like I wouldn't say, it wasn't like If I Can Dream, where If I Can Dream was like a complete protest song. This one was more of a song that showed you the perspective of the African American struggle in society, I guess, if you want to say it like that. I love this album so much, in fact, I've actually got the CD Legacy edition of it right here, and then I've also got I got a copy of it on vinyl, a Japanese pressing. I've got a 7-inch of it from the Philippines, which I'll put right up here. And then I've got a factory sealed copy of the album, which I'll quickly take the camera off the mount. But I've got it, actually, sorry. I've got it right here. So see, like I've got it sealed. Bought it for about, God, nearly $100 or so. But anyways, I might cover From Elvis in Memphis in a future video in a much better time constraint. Elvis is, I think, at his absolute best vocally, in my eyes, like in a performance sense. And I'm gonna say this, it's kind of like later on his voice, like yes, it got deeper as he got older and he could obviously reach a bit more high notes, but I feel like later on it never quite had that rawness again as it did in like 1968 till about 1971-ish. Like it never had that raw edginess to his voice ever again. I don't think he ever really got that in the end of his life. You know what I'm trying, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but point being, it never had that rawness to it, that feeling of emotion, that gut-wrenching sort of vocal range that he had in that period with the rough edge around the vocal cords. I mean, I could go on about Elvis's vocal range through the years. That maybe I might do that eventually, but I'm not gonna. After this video, I'll be honest, this is probably the last Elvis video I'm gonna do for a while. I kind of want to focus on other music, not just purely Elvis stuff. If you have subscribed for that stuff, this channel is not just an Elvis channel. I mean, there's plenty of other Elvis content creators out there that make much better, more deep and depth videos than mine can provide. I mean, I do have another Elvis video if you want to check it out. My Elvis Sings the Wonderful World of Christmas review that I uploaded back in December. I mean, that's probably the other Elvis video I've made on the channel. In the tier list, we also got Paradise Hawaiian Style. The reason why I put this in the 1 to 3, honestly, it is a terrible album. I'm sorry. Like, I know people will again burn me at the cross and go, how dare you, I love that album, what's wrong with you? Paradise Hawaiian Style is one of those albums I never really go back to at all. Like, I'm sorry, I don't enjoy songs like Queenie, Wahini's Papaya and Dayton. Like, it's just, they're just not my cup of tea when it comes to the movie soundtracks. I mean, the titled song itself is actually like alright. For LP fans only, again, I put this in the good category. I know people are gonna crap on me because, oh, why don't you like the early material? I get that there's people that love the early Elvis material more than the later stuff, but I don't know, that 50s material to me, personally as a fan, it never really gravitated towards me. Like, as a kid, yeah, I loved that stuff, you know, like Hound Dog and whatever, but as I've gotten older, I don't hate it, but it's just not my style of music when it comes to listening to Elvis nowadays. Like, when it comes to Elvis, I like listening to more the like 60s and 70s material. That's why I obviously put Elvis Country and From Elvis in Memphis in the amazing tier of this list. Something for Everybody, again, I put this in the good tier, pretty much. There's some decent tracks on it, that's all I'm gonna say. Okay, oh no, I actually changed this. So for LP fans only, the reason why I put this in the okay tier, like I was gonna go back to it, the reason why I put it in the okay tier is, it's mainly just filler tracks. It's stuff from like, I think it's stuff from like EPs and early Sun singles that they had in the RCA archives, you know, during his time in the army. Because obviously when he was in the army, there was like a huge supply and demand for his material. And so they put out, obviously for LP fans only, in A Date with Elvis. It Happened at the World's Fair. I put it in the okay category. Again, I actually like It Happened at the World's Fair as a movie. Like, I know it's one of my, I think along with like Fun in Acapulco and like Girls, 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 they're like guilty pleasure movies that, look, they're not amazing movies by all means. They're not like, you know, North by Northwest or West Side Story levels of amazing, but they're just charming, cheesy little fun movies that I can put on when I don't feel like anything engaging with my brain. In those movies, I mean, he does sing some good songs. Like, obviously It Happened at the World's Fair has like Cotton Candy Land, One Broken Heart for Sale, like They Remind Me Too Much of You is a pretty good song. Yeah, they remind me too much of you. No, I'm kidding, I'm not gonna sing. I put it in the okay tier because it's an album that I don't listen to very often outside of the movie. I mean, minus One Broken Heart for Sale, much of the songs I don't really listen to outside of the movie context. That's a lie. I listen to One Broken Heart for Sale and they remind me too much of you, but other than that, most of the other songs I don't really listen to outside of the movie context, but again, they're not songs that I would pass on if they played on the radio. Speedway. I put this in the good category. I actually like this album, the Speedway soundtrack, because it comes in a later era of Elvis's movie career where obviously by this point they were really running out of shit to do. The filmmakers, like the people that were making these like really trashy sort of movies, I'd call them, they were really running out of stuff, so obviously they tried to do, pretty much this movie is just basically they tried to do Viva Las Vegas again, but instead of Anne Margaret, they got Frank Sinatra's daughter Nancy to be his co-star, and she does a pretty good song on that album. What is it, Your Groovy Little Self, I think it's called, or something like that. I'll put the title up here if it's incorrect, but that is a really good vocal performance. And I mean, but then again, I've always liked Nancy Sinatra's music. And then the In Person at the International, I put it in the great tier because, again, obviously Elvis's first Vegas season was recorded and put on an album, obviously being this album right here. And pretty much what it was, RCA did this to kind of entice people to go see Elvis in Vegas, to obviously help his show get out there. And obviously for the listening public to be like, if he sounds that good live, I might as well go see him at the Hilton. And that's where they created that. Obviously the In Person album is honestly, I think that and Madison Square Gardens, I think, are the best live albums he ever did, in my opinion. Like, the In Person album is great. Like, he's just got this, again, this raw energy, like I was speaking about from Elvis in Memphis part. He's got this raw energy, and there's so many great live versions on here of songs. On Stage, again, I put it in the great tier. On Stage is another phenomenal album. I don't know, everything about it is good. Like, I love the version of CC Rider on here. You know, with CC Rider on Stage, it still has that energy to it, whereas later on it kind of just became like, all right, we're going to open up with CC Rider at every show, or majority of the shows. We're going to open up with just CC Rider and then do I Got a Woman, Amen, you know, the later 70s material, you know, obviously with JD doing his deep, low bass note stuff. To be fair, Runaway, Elvis does an interesting take on it, but I much prefer the Del Shannon version. Then we got Wonder of You. I mean, the Wonder of You has become one of those songs where, you know, when it first came out, it was probably, you know, a bit of a minor hit, but then over time kind of gained its popularity more in live performances. You know, it became more of a live staple. And obviously, I mean, for an album called On Stage, I mean, it was recorded live, so I can see that. Poke Salad Annie, another song that became a popular live staple through the 70s. The version on here is pretty good, but I can kind of see why he later on got rid of the spoken word intro. Like, it kind of runs on for a bit too long in some parts. In some versions of it, it runs on for a bit too long. Yesterday is one of those songs that, as a Beatles song, I've never really enjoyed it. It's one of my least favorite Beatles songs, and I know people say, oh, what is wrong with you? But I really don't like Yesterday, no matter who's doing it. It's just one of those songs, it's just, for me, in my eyes, it's a bit too melodramatic, and I don't know. In my eyes, it's melodramatic, and it kind of drags, for me, at least, musically. Oh, jeez, I already know that statement's gonna do me well in the future. Proud Mary, obviously the Creedence song. Again, I like both versions, and I also like Tina Turner's version of the song, so it's a good song. It's a great song. Walk a Mile in My Shoes, the Joe Self tune. Again, just another great written tune. And then obviously, I think my favorite version of Let It Be Me that comes off the album. Because Let It Be Me, don't get me wrong, I like the George Harrison version, and I also like the Everly Brothers version, but Elvis does it, and he turns it into like something else that's completely different. Or not completely different, but it's somewhat different from the original Everly Brothers recording. Blue Hawaii. I put it in the good category, and I know people are going to give me crap for that.
Don't get me wrong, I enjoy the songs.
Blue Hawaii is a mellow, like, relaxing tune. But then you get some kind of questionable songs, like Ito Eats is kind of just like a filler song, and then Slicing Sand is a filler song. Like, you know what I mean? There's songs that are good outside of that movie. Obviously, Can't Help Falling in Love comes off that record, but the other songs are kind of just like, they work within the context of the movie, but when you listen to them outside of the movie, they don't. Alright, GI Blues. Where did I put this? I put this in the okay category. Again, I'm going to get a lot of crap for that. What Is Wrong With You? Don't get me wrong.
Don't get me wrong.
Wooden Heart. is a really good song. I love Wooden Heart. I mean, that's how I learnt German, was through that song. There's a couple of good songs off that too that I actually like. I like Pocket Full of Rainbows. I've actually covered that before. When I was in a cover band, I used to cover that and Doing the Best I Can, which were two of the songs that came from that movie. And the re-recording of Blue Suede Shoes is interesting, I guess, because it kind of shows a more mature Elvis, you know, like a mature sounding Elvis at that point. Because obviously he had just gotten out of the army, and like pretty much Paramount kind of wrote the movie as like, okay, it's sort of about Elvis's experiences in Germany, but it's really not, because it's more fictionalized, and obviously because of the times they couldn't get away with sexual stuff that comes with being in the army. But yeah, I have a soft spot for the movie, and the soundtrack is an okay soundtrack.
Rustabout.
Oh man, a soundtrack I'm gonna get so much hate for. I put it in the bad category. You could tell by the time they did Rustabout, Elvis was kind of becoming a caricature in the movie years, in the sense of they were just doing the same movies and repackaging it as something new for the fans. And that movie is a great example of that. And then there's also that cheesy scene in the movie.
Come on. No, that's karate. That goes with the sickle. Come on.
Some of the songs in it are not that great. I mean, like Little Egypt's a fine version, but I much prefer the version by the Clovers. And then obviously Wheels on My Heels, or whatever that song's called.
So I got wheels on my heels.
Other than that, some of the other songs are kind of just a bit meh for me. It's, again, like Paradise Hawaiian Style or Kissing Cousins. They're not albums I go back to very often, so yeah, that's why I put it in the bad category. How Great Thou Art, I put it in the amazing tier. Reason why, from start to finish, another album I can listen to all the way through. From Elvis Presley Boulevard, Memphis, Tennessee, I put it in the okay tier. There's a few songs on that record I do not like for example, oh man, like I don't like Never Again. I feel like that's kind of a boring track, personally myself. Never Again. And then Better They Are, Harder They Fall is kind of just meh. Like it's fine, but it's very like late 70s country production vibe on that song.
Girls.
I put it in the bad tier category. And when I mean bad, I mean it's a 4 on the scale. It's not a 3. It's not lower than it. It's just one of those albums that, to me, again, I don't listen to most of the songs like outside of the context of the movie. I like this other one he does in the movie called Because of Love, which I love that song, and then obviously, yeah, Because of Love, but I much prefer the Billy Fury version. I Got Lucky. I put it in the Y category. The reason why, I know people kind of have a soft spot for the Camden albums, and I understand that, you know, obviously, because in the 70s it would have been probably the first album they could have afforded to buy, especially if you were a young Elvis fan in that time frame. And I can kind of see why people have a soft spot for those Camden albums. I'm gonna just repeat myself. It's just a filler album anyways. I want to skip on to the next few albums. The Christmas album from '57, I put this in the good category because while I enjoy songs like Blue Christmas, Santa Claus is Back in Town, some of the songs on this not that great. Like Silent Night, I'm not a big fan of. I don't like his version of I Believe. I much prefer the Frankie Lane version. Again, that's my own preference, so I don't care what you have to say. But then there's It's No Secret What God Can Do, which I actually like that song. You know, it's no secret what God can do. Nah, but in all seriousness, let's continue. Love Letters from Elvis. Again, I put this in the okay category. Love Letters from Elvis, I feel like it's an album that, while it gets a bit too much hate, it's not a great album either. I'm not going to say it's this amazing album or it's a good album. It's okay. Golden Records Volume 4, again, I put it in the great tier. Elvis is Back, again, I put it in the amazing tier. I've spoken about this album so many times. Again, just another great album from start to finish. Raised on Rock, I put this in the...
Today, Junior?
In the okay tier. Again, just another okay album, sort of like Love Letters from Elvis. It's not an awful album, but it's not the best album either. Like, I mean, you get some good songs on there. But then again, the only reason I don't like this album either is the titled song is not really my favorite thing that Mark James wrote. Because Mark James wrote some great songs for Elvis. Moody Blue, Always on My Mind, Suspicious Minds. But then he writes a song like Raised on Rock, which, I mean, it would have worked for someone like, you know, Mac Davis or a Randy Newman. For an Elvis Presley, it doesn't work because most of the songs that he talks about growing up with were songs that came out way past his teenage years, like Hound Dog, Johnny Be Good, Chain Gang, Knock on Wood. These are songs that came out later on in Elvis's life, not in the early years of his life. That's kind of where I'm a bit too much with the accuracy, I guess, of a song. Elvis Today, the Today album. I put this in the good tier. I have a soft spot for the Today record. I mean, most of the songs on here I like T-R-A-U-B-L-E, the titled song is pretty good. Woman Without Love is this song that's kind of like, it's a song that would have been made back in the 60s and 70s, but nowadays it would be, you know, in this like snowflake sort of generation that we live in, it would be considered pretty misogynistic and politically incorrect, point being. Shake a Hand is a really good version. Like, the version of Shake a Hand on here is killer. The second album, again, I put this in the good tier. Spin Out, I put this in the okay category. But the bonus tracks on that album are actually really good. Like, obviously, I'll Remember You, Down in the Alley, which is a killer, like, R&B version. His brilliant cover of the Bob Dylan song Tomorrow's a Long Time, which is arguably one of the best recordings he ever did in his career, because like a lot of people said, he meant that shit. So yeah. Double Trouble, I put this in the Y category. The reason why I put this in the Y category, it's just a terrible album. I don't really like any song off of it at all, and I'm being serious. Promised Land, I put this in the good tier. Good Times from 74. This I put it in the okay tier. Aloha, this is a controversial one. I put it in the bad tier. The reason why I put it in the bad tier, bro, is the rehearsal version that came from the Aloha special is actually good. And then you listen to the live show, like you listen to the rehearsal and you're like, yeah, man, this guy's gonna be ready in 2 days. He's gonna put on a phenomenal show. And then you watch the actual show and it's kind of, in retrospect, it's kind of disappointing. Like, it's kind of funny because the producer of that show said all this shit about how Elvis, you know, when he went and saw Elvis 2 months before the show, he was unfit, he wasn't in the best shape, he didn't have much movement in him on stage. And then you watch Aloha and he's just got this like low energy thing going about him. Like, vocally he sounds good, but his presentation in the show is not that great at all. Like, and I'm sorry, like, it's really not. Like, if I saw Aloha for the first time in the 1970s and I saw this guy in a jumpsuit singing a bunch of these, like, you know, crooner sort of songs mixed in with the odd throwaway tune, I would probably not go see this man live, and I probably would not have enjoyed this man's music like I did. I discovered Elvis through his version of Hound Dog, obviously. That's what got me into him in the first place. Something is really good. Like, it's a decent version, Something, the Beatles tune. Steamroller Blues is probably one of the better songs that comes off this special. My Way, obviously, is iconic with Elvis at this point. It's Over is pretty good. I like his version of It's Over. I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry. There's a good story with that version. Apparently when he sung it, he actually sung it thinking about his mother. And the story goes is there's a picture somewhere on the internet where he's singing that song and you can see tears dripping down his eyes as he's like singing the song. And it's kind of what makes me enjoy it slightly more than Hank Williams's original rendition, because Elvis again meant that shit when he sung I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry on the special. Like, you can see the pool of tear going down his eye at the end when he finishes and concludes the song. What Now My Love is pretty good off this record, off the Aloha album. Welcome to My World I enjoy. Actually, fun fact, when I used to do gigs before COVID, that was my opening song, his version of Welcome to My World. I used to do that as the opener, so I'd come out on stage and it would be like, welcome to my world, won't you come on in, you know, yada yada. Suspicious Minds is okay on this. It's not a great version. I much prefer the Madison Square Gardens version compared to the Aloha one. I'll Remember You is pretty good, and then you get the oldies medley, which is kind of a throwaway, so I don't really enjoy that much. And then obviously you get American Trilogy, or as Elvis would call it in one of his shows, American Triology. So yeah, you know, that's a pretty good version of that song. And then obviously you get Big Hunk of Love. Golden Records Volume 2, recorded live on stage in Memphis, the 74 one. I put this in the good tier. The reason why is because by 74, Elvis's shows kind of became, how would I say this? They kind of became formulaic. Fun in Acapulco. This one I was a bit biased on. I put it in the great tier because I think every song from Fun in Acapulco, whether it's in the movie's context or not, I think it's actually a great album. I listened to it from start to finish. And it's kind of what got me into foreign music. as a teenager. Let's Be Friends. I put this in the bad tier. And I know, before you judge me, I do enjoy Change of Habit that comes off that record, and I'll Be There. Those are two songs I really enjoy. Harum Scarum I put in the Y tier for obvious reasons. One of them being Hey Little Girl, which, yeah, he probably shouldn't have recorded that song per se. And I know people say,
Oh, but he had a movie contract. He had no choice.
You still could have objected to that song, though. Like, even in 1965, those lyrics were pretty perverted. They're pretty pervy, and they're pretty weird. And it's more weird because he's singing it to a child in the movie. Frankie and Johnny, again, I put it in the Y tier. The debut album, I put this in the great tier. Gold Records Volume 1, I put this in the great tier. Clam Bake, it is in the bad tier. If we were talking about a wedding setup, I would probably leave the other songs at the altar and marry, you know, Just Call Me Lonesome Big Boss Man and Guitar Man. I'd marry those songs, and the others can just be left at the altar. Elvis Sings The Wonderful World of Christmas. You already know my opinion on this album. Come On Everybody. I put this in the bad tier. Again, no wait. I put it in the okay tier. Minus a couple of songs. It's a pretty pointless release, so that's all I have to say about Come On Everybody. It's just a pointless Camden album from the early 70s. Almost in Love. I put this in the good tier, actually, because I enjoy most of the songs that come off that album. Elvis for Everyone. Again, this goes in the okay tier, and the reason why, most of the songs that come off Elvis for Everyone, again, are just filler songs. It's basically like for LP fans only and A Date with Elvis. It's one of those albums that pretty much most of the songs are filler. It's stuff taken from either pre-existing recordings or stuff that hadn't been put out yet, or stuff that was put on EPs and singles, etc. Or again, stuff that hadn't been put out yet. A Date with Elvis. Again, in the okay tier, it's just a basic compilation of the early Sun stuff, mixed in with some early EP stuff, so like Jailhouse Rock and Love Me Tender stuff. And in this album, I put it in the amazing tier. Elvis recorded live on stage at Madison Square Gardens. I listened to it again the other night. Just a phenomenal album. You know, the starter being That's Alright Mama is just killer, and then he goes into Proud Mary, and then Never Been to Spain, and the list goes on and on. There's just so many great songs that come off that. Like, he does a really killer version of Suspicious Minds. Kissing Cousins, I put this in the Y tier, and the reason why that is, the movie is god-awful, and the album is no better, so there we go. I barely listened to that. The full album, I put this in the okay tier. Obviously, there's songs on there I enjoy, but again, it's just kind of a mishmash of stuff from the 1971 Nashville sessions mixed in with various other recordings from around that time, including stuff that was recorded during the Elvis on Tour sessions, like Where Do I Go From Here in Full, which was the original title of this album, but nowadays, I think people just call it Elvis. Again, there's 3 Elvis albums. There's the 56 one, which is the second album, then you got the comeback special, which is just called Elvis. And then you got the 73 album, which is Elvis, but it's also the full. Potluck with Elvis, did I put it in? Yeah, I put it in the good tier. Reason why, Kiss Me Quick is a really good song. I love Kiss Me Quick off that album. And most of the other songs are fine. That's the Way It Is, again, put it in the amazing tier. I love the film. And fun fact, with That's the Way It Is, I have it on Blu-ray, so you know I'm a big fan of that movie. Especially the 2001 re-edit of the movie is much better than the original one. Girl Happy, I put this in the okay tier. An album that the titled song itself is meh. More so because if you read the story behind that song, apparently by 1965, RCA had finally realized that Elvis's voice was maturing and it didn't have that young, high-pitched sound that it had in the early years, you know, that young guy sound, because he was obviously approaching middle age. So what they did was they sped up the tape to the titled song, and I think from what I heard, they sped up the tape to most of the songs on that album because they wanted him to sound younger to sell the record, and it didn't really sell that great, and I can kind of see why. We got the comeback special album, the Elvis 68 album, which I put in the amazing tier. I put it in the okay tier. Reason why, there's a couple of songs that are fine. The movie itself is fine, but it kind of drags on in some parts. King Creole, the final album on the tier list. I put this in the amazing category. The movie itself is my all-time favorite Elvis movie. I enjoy every moment of that movie. The gritty black and white, the acting from him, and then Felicia Adams from the Addams Family, and Vic Morrow, who sadly would die during the making of the Twilight Zone movie, which that story is hella messed up. But nah, King Creole is a great soundtrack from beginning to finish. I love a lot of the songs off of it. Obviously, one of my other favorite songs comes off that album. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, looking for trouble. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, came to the right place. No, but in all seriousness, like, just some great songs that come off that album. And yeah, we pretty much have done the Elvis tier list. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully some of you did. I know most of you won't, but I hope some of you did, as a fellow Elvis fan like myself. Anyways, thanks again for watching this Elvis tier list video. Sorry if it was very long or short. I tried to make this as quick as I could, because I wanted to do another video, not only because I wanted to milk the name Elvis one more time, but I also wanted to do something a bit different from the usual music content that I make on this channel. Obviously, when I do these videos about music, obviously I go and I talk about one album and I give my opinions and my thoughts. Or I'll talk about the background of a said album, like in the case of the Roy Orbison video I did, or the Keith Moon video I did many months ago. Well, I'll talk about the artist's background story, the background story of the album, and then I'll rank I'll do my opinions on the tracks, track by track list, which is a format I do on the show. But this one was a bit different. I wanted to do a tier list because, again, I wanted to make something different because I don't want to get stuck in a rut where I get bored of making the same content over and over again. As well, this is going to be the last Elvis video for a while, unless I cover the biopics eventually, or, unless some news comes out, like if I cover, the Baz Luhrmann thing, like the remastered documentary he's doing, which I might review in the future when it comes out. And then obviously if we talk about the extended cut of the Baz Luhrmann 2022 Elvis movie, I mean, minus those couple of videos, I'm probably going to take a bit of a break from talking about Elvis, so in advance, I'm really sorry if you just purely subscribed to the channel for just Elvis content. Again, there's plenty of other guys you can go watch and listen to that speak about Elvis and know probably a lot more than my moron brain does, apparently. Anyways, until next time, goodbye, and remember, I'm not an Elvis channel, I'm a music channel.